Hey guys, hey, this is Michael Bootcamp Thomas, your success and financial coach. Hey, I want to take a moment and do a quick summary or tell you a story out of the book of The Richest Man in Babylon. I found this book to be a fascinating read. I stumbled upon this book while I was a fire marshal. I was doing some inspections in an area here in Columbia, South Carolina that had a lot of bars and nightclubs that locals students visited on a regular. And one of the guys that I was actually doing an inspection for was named Scott Lindenberry. Scott Lindenberry at the time was probably in his early 40s, mid 40s. But, you know, he had his hands in a lot. I think he owned at that time about 5 nightclubs in the area. And while I was doing the inspection, because I was in business, I've been in business for myself, you know, I like to pick the brains of, you know, really smart people. And I said, Scott, I said, you know, one day, you know, maybe, you know, at some time in the future, maybe we can share a cup of coffee. I'd like to pick your brain. And he said to me, he said, Thomas, I'm just lucky. Well, we went on, we did the inspection. And when it was done, you know, we kind of connected. He said, he turned to me before we parted our ways. And he said, Thomas, he said, if you want to learn everything that I know, he said, get the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. I opened up my phone. I opened it up, went to Amazon. I purchased it, put it in my cart, and I purchased it before I left the parking lot that day. And I received the book, and I was really looking forward to getting into it, to dig through it and see what it had to offer. Now, so I'll go further to tell you that when I was 26 years old, I was a licensed financial advisor. So there was nothing new in the book that I didn't know, but what I was fascinated with was the stories. The stories were powerful. The story began with a young man who was poor. Life was tough, and he was determined to find the understanding on how to build wealth. So he began to earn his money as a scribe, carving into the clay tablets of wealthy people. And one day, one of the wealthy people entered into the workplace and asked for a copy of the 9th law to be carved into the clay. And he says, if this is finished by the time that I return, I give you 2 copper coins. The young man received the 9th law and began to carve, but it was long. He said, I worked all day, but I was not able to get it finished. He said, but when the old man returned, Amish, the money lender, the wealthy man, he was angry because it wasn't complete. And he said that, you know what? If you were my slave, I would beat you. But the young man said, I wasn't worried because, you know, I knew that it wasn't possible. But he said, I went on to say to the old man, he said, listen, he said, you're a wealthy man. He said, if you will tell me how you earned your money, I'll stay up all night and I will carve. And when you return in the morning, I would have the 9th law completed. The old man says, you young, naive man, you have a deal. All right, so he said he stayed up, the young man, the richest man in Babylon, poor at that time, but he said he stayed up all night carving into the clay. And he said the smell of the wick caused his eyes to burn. He couldn't see. His back hurt. I mean, it was a tough task. He said, but nevertheless, he was determined to finish the 9th law. So when the old man returned, he said to him, I have finished my part of the bargain. And the old man says, you have. And now I shall tell you what I promised. He said, but before I tell you, let me just tell you, I'm going to warn you that you're going to think that what I'm about to tell you is not going to be worth your night's labor. He said, you know, what I'm about to share with you, when you guys come to old people for wisdom, he said, you don't really benefit from it because you think that wisdom only applied to the past. He said, but this wisdom is unchanged. He said, so unchanged that sailors set their course by it. Nothing changes. It's the same laws that we're working with, reaping and sowing. So it's the same stuff and nothing changes. So he goes on and says, you guys have bright bright minds and great ideas. He said, and they're great, but you need this wisdom to bring them forward. And then he goes to say, let me give you what I promised. He said, I found the road to riches when I realized that a part of my income was mine to keep, and so will you. And the young guy said he looked, he pierced him with his eyes, and he said no more. And then the young guy said, he says, is that it? He said, that was sufficient. He said, that was sufficient to change a man from a sheep herder, myself, the old man said, to a money lender. He said, that was sufficient. He said, the road to riches is that you keep a part of your income. A part of your income must be yours to keep. And the young man replied, is all of my income not mine to keep? And the old man says, far from it. He said, let me ask you a question. Old man's pushing back. He said, do you buy food? He said, yes. Do you buy sandals? He said, yes. Do you buy clothes? He said, yes. Do you pay for a place to stay? He said, can you live here in Babylon without spending? He said, go back and look for the last month. How much of your income have you kept? For the last year, how much do you have to show? He said, you buy food, clothes, and shoes, but you save nothing for yourself. He said, you may as well be a slave, fool. Your master will buy you those things. He said, your master will buy you food and clothes. He said, if you do not keep a part of your income for yourself, you may as well be a slave. Close the book. I said, wow, that was powerful. Wow, that was powerful. So, the gist of wealth building becomes 1/10 of everything that you earn, 10% at least. Now, today's economy, it may be 15, 20%, but a part of your income must be yours to keep. And then, once you master that task, we can take that 10 to 15% and deploy it in a way that starts to make more money, even money while you sleep, in the stock market. All right? And because of stock appreciation, dividend reinvestment, and compound interest, any young person that is willing to follow this formula, if the U.S. stock market continues to do what it has done in the last 100 years, you'll be a millionaire. Period. And that's old information from years ago. Today, if you follow the information with technology, you can do it much sooner. Guys, the book, Richest Man in Babylon, fascinating read, fascinating stories. Follow these 7 steps to a cure of a lean purse, and you'll thank me later.